everyone, and thank you for joining us today. The focus of today's conversation is the importance of safe and quality repairs. And we're pleased to announce the winner of our inaugural Best Repair Planner and Estimator Award, Anthony McNee, who is the blueprinter at Ultimate Collision Repair in Edison, New Jersey. We at Fender Bender and ABRN wanted to recognize the deep thinkers who iron out the details of repairs big and small and know how technicians can use the latest tools, equipment, and knowledge to bring vehicles back from crashes. New for 2024, this award celebrates those who place an unwavering emphasis on safe and quality repairs and who has the know-how to improve efficiency while committing to safety and OEM specified repair quality every time. Joining us today are three of this year's sponsors of the award. Brian Brown is Western Technical Manager at AkzoNobel. Don Smith is Senior Director of Remote Operations at Elitek. And Chris Bonneau is Business Manager at Sun Collision Repair Information. I'm also pleased to have us joining today, if most of us, if not all, know already, Mike Anderson of Collision Advice. Mike's team was gracious enough to help us with the final estimating exercise. That was our final step in selecting a winner from our finalists. So he was an integral part of our selection process, and we're very grateful for all your help. Welcome, everyone. Ryan, could you start us out and describe the work that AkzoNobel is doing to ensure safe and quality repair processes, such as identifying which paint codes can pose a challenge for refinishing that could affect the accuracy of ADAS sensors?
Yes. So what we really do is kind of focus on three different areas, right? So the biggest part of it is working with the OEMs themselves. It's a lot of it's their information, but our role is to look at how do they work within their ADAS systems on their specific vehicles and make sure that, if there are things that need to be done for the paint formula, that we work with them and make sure it's formulated correctly with the right amount of aluminum in there. Every one of them handles it a little bit differently. So it's always going to be kind of specific to that OEM and can't even be that model, right? So that's kind of the biggest part of it. Second thing is we will kind of work with them as well on repair procedures that could be done or what needs to be maybe thought about before it goes into the collision shop. The second part of kind of what we do in radar ADAS stuff is work to educate. And so a lot of that is we did a online virtual training module that customers can take that kind of explains how it works and things they need to be aware of. It can't get very vehicle specific because every OEM handles that differently, and it really is their information to share. But also on an IT side through color mixing software and how it interacts to let customers know which formulas are radar transparent or maybe have been modified. Along with a lot of that stuff, we try and speak at a lot of industry events. We try and talk at both collision shops, distributors, everywhere we basically can get the word out and make people aware of things that they need to know as far as how to correctly and safely repair that car when it gets in their shop and make sure they're looking at all the OEM procedures and following them correctly.
And I'm sure we'll come back to you for some follow-up, Ryan. I want to move on to Elitek. Don, can you tell us how can remote post-scan and calibration from Elitek help ensure safe and quality repair processes?
Yeah, thanks for having us, by the way. Really with the pre and post scan, what we're really looking to do is identify issues in the vehicle and make sure they're corrected. With the pre-scan, we can help the shop understand what items need to be addressed. We can help them have conversations with the insurance company and the customer, what might be collision related or what might not be collision related, as well as help them identify what parts they might need to order, such as a deployed seatbelt tensioner that's in the back seat, or if a ADAS sensor has an error code in it, we might be able to tell that, hey, look, you need to go visually inspect that and see what's going on with it to understand if it needs to be ordered ahead of time. And if it does, we can tell them about the calibration. What we're really trying to do is help them have an efficient estimate with as minimal amount of add-ons as possible and keep that cycle time down. And then in the post-scan, what we're really looking to do is make sure that the issues we identified in the pre-scan had been corrected. And then secondly, help identify any issues that may have come up during the repair process. such as a technician maybe left the door unplugged or a switch unplugged. But really what we want to make sure that our family of repairers knows is that the post scan is not the come all end all. It's only with one step in a process of making sure that vehicle is safe to go home to the customer and all the features are working correctly. And what we mean by that is part of that step is making sure a test drive is performed correctly. Just because you have an ADAS calibration done doesn't mean it's done correctly. You can do an ADAS calibration and it'll go through, even if the target might be slightly off. And what that means when you're driving the vehicle is you might be going around a corner and it sees another vehicle going around that curve and it throws on the brakes to try to avoid a collision. And in turn, you've got a car rear-ending, you cause a collision. The other thing that we highly recommend to all of our shops is if you can find a button on the vehicle to push it. Make sure it's working. That's really the only way, because a lot of these codes that come up in the post-scan process, pre-scan process, aren't necessarily going to trigger until you've tried to activate that particular function. Some will and some won't. So we always want to make sure that we talk to our customers about, educate our customers about doing a thorough inspection of the vehicle. All this is done to make sure that we can get the vehicle back on the road in a pre-repair condition and as safely as possible. That way, when your family is on the road next to that car, you feel safe that that car has everything done to it correctly.
Dino with the Goliath carts was not able to join us today. Unfortunately, he had a death in the family. But Anthony, I know that when you and I were doing the interview for the article, you had talked to me about how you use Goliath carts, ADAS cart. I know I've been using a couple of different monitors for the last few years, but I'm looking at adding a third, and I know that's been a big help for your productivity. Can you talk a little bit about how you use the ADAS cart and set it up for productivity?
Yeah, so the AdAsh card makes things a lot more efficient. So there's different ways you could use it. So one, it can be a mobile workstation, so you can roll right up to a car or, anywhere really in the shop and kind of work from there. The way that I have mine set up is I have two screens up top and then I have my laptop at the bottom. So I'm able to do multiple things at the same time. So the way that I use it is procedures on one, my estimate on the other, and I usually have my notepad at the bottom. So I'm able to kind of do it all at the same time, which makes it really streamlined. Other people run printers in them. I personally don't. Other people can have it hooked up to like an ADAS system, so like you can charge your batteries off charge a car battery right from the cart, so you can roll it right up to it. You can also put your scanners in it as well, so a lot better.
Nice.
Yeah.
We'll come back for some more, but I appreciate you joining us today for this call.
Of course.
And Chris, can you tell us about how the Sun Collision Repair package works in the estimating repair planning workflow?
Absolutely. Again, thank you for having us, and congratulations to our winner as well. With what we've got going on is shops are trying to find efficiencies all over the place. Everyone's trying to get more business out the door, and most of the time it's going to take a bigger building, it's going to take more equipment, it's going to take more people. All those things are hard to come by right now. And so trying to help increase the efficiencies inside the shops, that's one of the things that we're trying to help out with. So with the repair package feature, it is going to be able to bring over the information from your estimate out of your estimating system. And so instead of having to rekey, re-enter everything that you have, we're looking at the part numbers that you guys have already put in. And instead of everyone having to go through and find all the information that they need for those procedures and for those parts, based off the part numbers that you supply to us inside of your estimate already, we're going to go through our system and find all the information we have, whether it's ADAS calibration information, remove and replace, dimensions, cuts, whatever information that the OE provides for those repairs. We're going to make it so you don't have to go through and dig and find. That's one of the hardest things to get back, is the money and the time that you spend doing research. So we try to bring down that research time for you. It actually allows customers in the shop to be able to print this package out. They can either print it out on a PDF, or they're still able to use it on a tablet, on a mobile device. The technician in the back, each shop has a little different way that they run their production setup. So some people are looking up all the information at the beginning of the stage. Some of the technicians are looking up the information in the back. So we're trying to provide a simple solution to help eliminate some of that lookup time that everybody has to go through. Again, trying to help increase efficiencies within the shop.
Sounds like it's very flexible too, so it allows, depending on, I talked to someone recently about how different work styles, some of us are more planners, some of us kind of just jump in and read the direction. I'm talking about IKEA furniture, something not as critical, but jump in and read the instructions if we can't figure it out later. So
that's it. It gives the repair planner at the very front the ability to put, if that's the way that their system works, to put all the procedures in place, have all the documentation ready to go for whoever the job needs to get passed on to. But it's also a very easy lookup for the technicians on the back end if they need something out of there that didn't get supplied.
Sure. And Mike, as I mentioned, you were gracious enough to help us with the practical, the estimating component, the estimating exercise. Can you tell me what you look for when you are grading these types of exercises, or if you recall what stood out on Anthony's estimate exercise?
Well, first of all, to echo what Chris said, congratulations to the winner. As you know, we had a lot of estimates that were submitted in this contest, and there were a lot of great estimates that were submitted that we reviewed. So really, when we reviewed the estimates to determine a winner, what we did is we said, first of all, let's look at not included operations. How well does the person that wrote the repair plan understand the not included operations? We also looked at line notes, like did they have line notes that would substantiate or justify what their itemized charge was on the estimate. But really the most critical thing that we looked at, because there were a lot, again, great estimates / repair plans, was did they have operations on there that we deemed were critical operations, stuff that would impact the safety of the consumer if that vehicle was repaired? Things such as seatbelt inspections or other safety inspections like SRS inspections. And this is where the winner of this year's inaugural contest really just shined. Like, honestly, I have to tell you that we could not find one safety inspection or anything that we felt that would be concerned with in regards to safety of the consumer should this vehicle be fixed by that repair plan that would have jeopardized their safety. So not included operations, line notes, and more importantly and most critically was the things that we deemed were needed on the estimate for a safe and proper repair. And this year's winner knocked it out of the ballpark. So if I didn't know his dad, I would actually probably offer him a job.
For sure. Ryan, I want to go back to you briefly. These new paint formulas, what's the biggest obstacle to getting new formulas that are not going to negatively affect the radar transmissibility and other factors for ADAS?
It's a good question. So there's a lot of different factors that go into it because it's not just about the color formula itself. Things you have to consider is both primer, thickness layer, clear coat thickness, a lot of different factors in that realm. But also when it goes to color, it's very OEM specific. So it depends on how the automobile interacts with their systems and what's been designed. But at the core of it really is aluminum content. That seems to be the one that has the most influence on it, but it's not. It also depends on the size of the aluminum, because the larger it is, the more space between the flakes, you get more transmission. The smaller metallics generally want to block more. So it's kind of a complex thing, and there's not a one size fits all answer. But generally what we do is we figure out what transmission level they're allowing. We can make the color formula. We can test it ourselves. We have the equipment to do it in-house, along with producing panels for the OEM so they can test it and double check. So make sure that we're all on the same page. That's really the large part of it. And there can be some color challenges too, because you start removing aluminum, you have to replace it with something, but at some point you can have some, less than ideal color match on certain things because it's just only so much you can really do there. So now you're talking about blending on surfaces that you would normally, not want to blend on. It's just the reality of what has to go on. I think the biggest thing customers can do is be educated on what the actual procedure is for the specific car, because it can be very different. It's not just paint coat related. The same color can be used on a lot of different makes and models over numerous years. Some models will need something done with that color. Other ones won't. It really depends on what the OEM says. I think the other big part is if it is a car that requires a radar transparent formula and you have that model, there's no tinting or adjustment allowed to that formula, because anything you do can take it out of spec of what's been designed. So that's kind of some big takeaways. Outside of there, it's like no blending of clear coat or base coat in radar zones is another big one. And it's kind of counterintuitive, because where you would normally want to blend color on a bumper cover is around the edge, and that's where the radar zone is on all of them. So it is a different challenge for repair shops. It's not hard, they just have to be educated.
Right. Well, there's really no simple repair anymore.
No.
And this just highlights that point. Don, could you speak about, if you could name like the number one mistake that a shop might make before enlisting your services? You know, it's telling you that they're ready for a calibration, or they're ready for a post scan, or what have you. Is there, are there one or two big points there where shops can improve?
Knowing where the keys are.
Simple things sometimes, right?
Yeah. A lot of times when you're calling out a sublet vendor, the challenges we see are timing. We get there, the car's still in the repair process, or it's in the paint booth. They thought it was going to be done. For that's really for the mobile team to come out and do a calibration. For the pre-scan process or the post-scan process, we see a lot of times they forget to do the pre-scan, and now they've torn it down. And so there's a lot of erroneous codes in there that really aren't relevant to the repair at the time. And so we lose a little bit of information. So probably timing is the number one thing, but also making sure they have proper voltage supply, whether it's a battery maintainer is what we always recommend. I'll probably get chastised at the next CFC meeting, but you can get by with a jump box, you can get by with a charger in a pinch, but always a voltage maintainer is the right way to go about it.
Right, because as I understand it, some of those programming processes can take hours, right?
Yeah, absolutely. If we're going to do an actual programming, right, if we're doing a pre-scan, that's where you can kind of get by with some stuff in a pinch. But if you're going to be doing a programming, let's say the airbag module got replaced and it needs to be programmed, or the headlights got replaced and need to be coded and programmed, some of that stuff can absolutely take an hour. And a lot of times it takes, 30 or 40 minutes when you're there at the vehicle with our mobile team, and then remotely you're going to add time to it as well, right? Now you've got to transfer that data even further than it was really intended to be done from the manufacturer, but it still gets there. It just takes a little bit longer. And so it's really important to have the right voltage when you're doing programming or any kind of adaptations, especially when we're doing the seat weight sensors. That's one thing that I think a lot of shops miss opportunity and miss. It's a missed safety item really. As a lot of the position statements call for a seat weight sensor check or calibration after any type of collision, and we see so many of them that just are not getting done, or they're getting done and it's not getting done properly. So it's a missed opportunity for safety for sure.
And Chris, can you speak on, are there any misconceptions that shop owners and operators and repair planners have about just repair information access in general, or as it pertains to what you provide?
That they can't find it, that it's too expensive, and they don't have time to use it. The most important thing is whether they're using our system or whether they're using somebody else's, making sure that they're using the OEM data, as somebody said before, making sure that those vehicles get put back on the road properly. My kids are out driving, my wife's out driving. Some car next to me, I don't know how that thing was repaired, and I'm hoping that whatever shop it is used the OEM procedures again, whether it was from our system or from directly from the OE or from a competitor, and that they repaired that vehicle properly. Again, as we talked about earlier, one of the things is trying to get your time back. And people don't do things because they think it takes too long to do or that it's hard to find. So we try to provide a alternative solution to be able to find that information. And again, everything we get directly from the OE. So making sure that those vehicles are repaired back to OE specs is key, and that information is out there.
Right. I saw a graphic the other day that just reminds me of, and I don't know if it was a Venn diagram or what, but it was like the circle that represented what you know, and it was like the size, like the size of a marble. And then there's a circle that depicts like what you don't know, and it was larger, like it was a baseball. And then like there was a larger circle yet that was what you don't know, So we're getting very meta here, but it was like the size of a bowling ball. And so, without looking it up, you just really don't know what you're missing out on, because the vehicles change so quickly. And even if you worked on that same make, model, and year last month, the OEM may have changed what the recommendations are this month. So
That's absolutely key. Every time, regardless of if you worked on that same vehicle last week, make sure you're going in and looking up those procedures again. As you said, those things change so frequently. And it's a different day and age than it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. You can't get by doing the same thing you did yesterday. You got to make sure that your procedures, everything you do, is up to today.
Sure. Anthony, do you have any quick tips on repair estimators or blueprinters or estimators looking to better themselves?
Yeah, there's a few tips out there I can kind of relay to, others. If you're going to start something, I say finish it. This is a very busy industry, so there's a lot of things that also go into just building an estimate. Not to mention what else you have to do during the day. So if you really have like something going on, I always say document it down, write it down so you can come back to it later. Or if you have the time, just finish it then. I also follow an order too. So when you're working on a car, I'd say start front to back or back to front. Go through each line of the diagrams, each picture, correspond with it. Do I need it? Do I not need it? R&I, replace. Just kind of follow a process. I'm being a checklist, so I have a whole checklist that I go through, a whole note sheet I go through as well. So I'm always just, double checking everything. Actually, it's funny, I have my notes here as well. So I was typing up when I first got up here. So I'm going through that. So I go through all my notes, and then I also go through all my photos as well. So it's kind of like a two-step verification. Make sure I really capture everything, because I may have just taken a picture and not wrote it down, vice versa. So.
And Mike, as you're going through these kinds of exercises, are there any common mistakes that repair estimators and blueprinters and estimators make?
Yes, but I would also be remiss if I may, if I could just comment on a follow-up comment on something Don Smith said, and that was that one of the things that stood out about Anthony's estimate was that on this specific vehicle, it was a vehicle that said you did not have to do a seat calibration unless you A, remove the seat, B, there was a DTC, C, you loosen the seat bolts, or D, if you had to replace the seat cover. And on this specific vehicle, which was a Toyota, in order to weld on the vehicle, you needed to disconnect the center SRS connector, which is located under the center console. And in order to disconnect that, you have to remove the center console. But in order to remove the center console, you have to remove the seat. And so therefore, if you remove the seat, you had to do a seat calibration. But that was something he had on his estimate. So had he not researched, and he had on his estimate also to disconnect the SRS connector, but if he had not actually researched that procedure, he would not have known that the seat had to be removed to do that process, which would do the process that Don actually mentioned, right? So again, just an example of something he had. Another thing on that same estimate was that, that vehicle manufacturer had some very specific safety inspections in regards to removing the airbags and removing the airbag sensors and doing a visual inspection, as well as using a diagnostic scan tool. And he had those itemized on his estimate as well. So I just wanted to kind of agree with what Don was saying there, that, he had that seat calibration there, Don, which, like, I think there was only one other contestant or that submitted an estimate actually had it on their estimate. Other than that, the rest did not. But as far as tips to write an estimate, again, I would agree a lot with what he said, is that you really need to approach it, in a systematic way, right? So like to me, I like to utilize something called the sector system, right? Where I put my full undivided attention on everything that's in what I call the primary sector, which is all the exterior components, anything that has to be removed, repaired, replaced. Then I'm going to shift to like the secondary sector, which is anything that's a structural component or operation. From there, I'm going to shift to mechanical. From there, I'm going to shift to inertia. And from there, so forth, right? So it's a very systematic approach. And again, much like he stated as well, I like to use multiple monitors. I mean, I remember like when they first came out with using dual monitors, I was like old school and fought that. And now I got to tell you, just a shout out to Dito Diaz. I know he couldn't be on here and I'm sorry for his loss. But I actually bought an ADAS cart to use for estimating, because now I have 3 monitors on there plus my laptop. So I remember I went from using one to, just like dual monitors, like a big challenge for me. And now, man, I've got like I've got my estimating system. I've got my OEM repair procedures. I may have photos of the vehicle. I may have the some type of diagnostic scan, software that is allowing me to, research the DTCs or look up ADAS things. So, I mean, I'm using, 4 monitors now, right, just to write an estimate. And I think also, again, I agree with what he said in the fact that, the OEM repair procedures, that's the Bible, that's the guideline. Like if you're going to build a house, right, if you're going to build a house, the blueprints dictate how the house is built. But the blueprints also have certain things you have to do to comply with building something. Like the concrete has to be a certain thickness if you're going to install a mechanical lift, right? So those ESM or OEM repair procedures, which Chris can attest to, as that's my blueprint for how I'm fixing that vehicle, right? And, our saying at Collision Advice is learn to research, research to learn. Learn to research, learn how to look for everything, and then research to learn how to fix the car properly. So, and again, like he said, when you get interrupted a lot, you'll forget where you left off at, and sometimes, you can lose things. So try to eliminate or minimize your distractions. I guess I would like to say one last thing, and this is kind of to support what Ryan said from AkzoNobel, and that is that too often repair planners / estimators, they're researching everything that the body technician or mechanic has to do. And it's very, very rare that you find somebody that researches how the painter can properly repair the vehicle. And as we start looking at electric vehicles, there's specific cure times, maybe specific temperatures, and so I think that, Ryan, to defend those painters out there, right, that we can't just limit our research to just the body tech and the mechanic or diagnostic or ADAS tech, right? But we got to be researching, because there could be, and I think we're going to see more of that in the future, some refinish requirements, right, or restrictions. So just to echo, I mean, everything that everybody in this call brings to the table, right, from Sun to Elitek to, Akzo to Dito, who's not here, like all that plays a role in writing an accurate repair plan for the benefit of the safety of the consumer.
Terrific. Mike, that's a great point about that, how everything's just the holistic view now. We have to consider everybody that's going to touch that car today.
Yes, sir.
Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. And if you're going to be at the SEMA show, check out the Red Carpet Awards, where we're going to be presenting the awards to Anthony. And hope you have a good rest of your day.
Congratulations, Anthony.
Congratulations, Anthony. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.